We're lucky enough today to have Larry Coleman with us, a three-time AMA national champion, correct?
Three-time AMA national champion, land speed record holder, and AMA Hall of Famer.
That's amazing. It was 2010 or 11 you got inducted.
2010, correct.
That's amazing. And you're the most successful sidecar racer in the United States, correct?
Rumor has it that's that's my billing.
What I'm going with. Excellent. So Larry is the one that brought us back sidecar racing for the AFM, which will be kicking off in 2026. And I think everybody's really excited that it's coming back.
I'm very, very pleased at the response from AFM, from everyone in general. It warms the sidecar heart to see the sidecars so well received. Very pleased.
Yeah, I think at one point during the board meeting when it was discussed, we had one of our members in attendance to say, he made a comment, I think it was, I can tell everyone in the room is for this, so how can we make it happen? And so it was really really a positive thing to see. Uh,
Excellent.
so just to give some background, how did you get into sidecar racing?
Well, I got into sidecar racing when I was in the military. I was in the Air Force in Germany. I got to Germany late in 1967. Um, Started riding motorcycles over there in 68 and started going to races and just became infatuated with motorcycle sidecars. And to the point where I wanted to start racing. And in 1969, I essentially took my leathers and my helmet and went to the races and put my thumb out and I said, anybody need a passenger? And it was amateur racing, amateur German racing. And I went to Hockenheim in 1969 for a race. And that was my first event, first in 1969 at Hockenheim as a passenger. And then I rode for about a year and a half as a passenger and I got almost stuffed under guardrails a couple times and just decided I wanted to be in control of this thing and bought my own sidecar outfit, 16-inch wheel BMW, state of the art for an amateur in Germany at the time, Neeler, and raced there until 1973 when I returned to the US and started racing with the AFM.
That's amazing. Did you ever make it over the Isle of Man?
I've been there three times as a spectator, but Pete Essoff, who is currently racing sidecars with Arma and was a longtime AFM racer, he and I raced together against each other. He raced the Isle of Man in 2016, and I went over and watched him race. And he completed both sidecar races, which is phenomenal for the first time effort. So there's been a few Americans, but I encourage every rider, solo or sidecars, or in motorcycle road racing enthusiast, period, to go to the Isle of Man because you can see the movies and you can look at the pictures, but until you're there, it's absolutely unbelievable.
Excellent. How is sidecar racing in Europe compared to the US now?
It's night and day. It's particularly in the UK, sidecar racing is very, very strong. Whether you've got a vintage Formula Two or Formula One, there's two or three events probably every weekend you can go to during the season. It's very strong, and it's strong in England, Ireland, Scotland, the Netherlands, Germany, France, very strong. FIM Formula One, which is the World Championship, which used to, when I was there, ran with the Grand Prix. Now they're on their own and they're struggling. They're struggling because they're struggling to find funding and they're having a tough time of it as a world championship, but as a club event and vintage racing is huge.
Is the in the US, is it more popular on the East Coast than the West Coast?
Correct. The American Historic Racing Motorcycle Association. who has a very good series. They kind of picked up sidecars several years ago, back about little 2002, 3, 4, somewhere in there, um, and started running sidecars. And now they're getting, and they get, there's a place in Arma, no matter what kind of sidecar you've got, if you've got a vintage, they've got about 7 classes, maybe. In fact, they've even whittled them down a little bit the last couple of years because they try and accommodate, to their credit, they try and accommodate whatever vintage sidecar you've got, from right, very old to vintage style to the newest style to Formula One, the monocoque chassis and whatnot. So they've done a great job, and it's very strong back there. Most of their racing, as you know, is back east. They only hit the western region a couple times a year. And they're getting probably a dozen sidecars regularly. And at the big event, like at Barber, we'll always get 20, 25 sidecars there. But they're doing a good job. But that's one of the reasons I picked up the phone and called AFM, because the Western region has just got no place to go. As you know, there are no clubs. AFM is it as far
Yeah.
as clubs in California anymore. It's all track days. And so that gives the opportunities for sidecar racing kind of catch as catch can, if we can put together a track day here and there, that sort of thing. And Bill Becker down in Southern California with Becker Moto Works, who was a sidecar builder and a very talented racer. He's done a great job of trying to keep it glued together here on the West Coast, but we need a series. We need a schedule that racers, as you know, can count on. They can budget, they can make plans, and something that's close to home. And AFM fits all those requirements and fits the bill. And so I couldn't be happier to put together an opportunity. And we've only got about 6 good sidecars now that are running on the West Coast. And this used to be the hotbed. When I was racing with AFM in the 70s and 80s, we'd get 10, 12, 15 sidecars out. At Laguna, we'd get 25. Of course, we get the East Coast guys for
Right.
Laguna. But there's a lot of sidecars that are sitting in garages because the guys have just not had any incentive to go racing. So I hope that not only do we give these guys who are active, the 6 guys, they get an opportunity to come out, but this is an opportunity now for these guys, people to, and teams to get their equipment out of the garages. And I've already heard from a couple who are excited about it. And I expect to see the ranks grow a little bit.
So with the team you mentioned, like if I go race and it's just by myself, I can be a one-man show for a weekend.
Right.
Could it be the same thing if you had a two-person sidecar team, or do you need more support than the typical motorcycle?
Well, the nice thing about sidecar racing is that if you've got a teammate who is, well, I like to say that, solo racing is 100% effort and sidecar racing is a 200% effort. So you've got somebody to split the expenses with, and they get to go racing too. I mean, both the driver and the passenger both get to go racing. So in theory, you both split the expenses. Although what we see a lot of are husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, father, daughter, father, son. It's quite a team, family oriented sport. And that's not unusual in the United States. I mean, it's overall.
That's great. Yeah, I know when this first came up, I jokingly shot a text to my buddy Stuart, who races sidecars, telling me I'd be giving him my resume for the monkey job, just because it just looks like a blast.
Right? Oh yeah. It's my one of my favorite sayings is more fun than you should have with your clothes on.
Yeah,
So and it's teamwork. And it's one of the things that attracted me to racing to begin with, was the satisfaction of 2 people gelling together and getting this thing around the racetrack, competitively. It's when it comes together, it's magic. It really is.
For the monkey position, is just out of curiosity, what do you look for now? Like I'm 6'4", 200 pounds before I put my leathers on. So if you're looking for someone, is that for your teammate? Are you going to try and find someone as small and nimble as possible, or what's the ideal person for that
I'm
position?
going to probably for a passenger, and I will say that I'd certainly, passenger, monkey, swinger, lots of different names. But I prefer passenger or co-driver because I figure at the speeds we're doing, well, we're not monkeying around.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for a guy, a person that's probably 150 pounds or so, maybe 5'9", 5'9" to 6 foot. You start getting tall, and it gets a little tricky. Although all you got to do is rearrange the handlebars, the handholds a little bit. I mean, but ideally, to my way of thinking, around 150 pounds, 150, 160 pounds, so 5'9" or so. Dude, I mean, when you got somebody that wants to ride, I mean, I've seen some very small, very agile people make great passengers. Again, it's that teamwork gel. It's that
Right.
teamwork together.
So as the main driver, how long does it take for you to get in sync with the co-driver as far as because their body position, moving the body weight around obviously impacts your steering. So
It's critical, and it takes a little bit of time. I mean, you can get it accomplished if you're good, if you're perceptive, and you do a little homework. You can get it dialed in two or three events. I mean, it's things like with a left-handed sidecar, as you go around a right-handed turn, that's when, and let me explain these basics, kind of sidecar 101. With a solo bike, as you know, when you go into a turn, you lean it into the turn to counteract the centrifugal force that's trying to pull you out. I mean, this is not rocket science. That's why you lean the bike. The weight has to go to the inside of the turn. No different with a sidecar. The weight still needs to go to the inside of the turn, but obviously you can't lean it. And that's where the passenger comes in. He moves the weight to the inside of the turn. But with a sidecar, for example, with a right-handed turn, when the passenger is leaning over the back of the bike to the inside of the turn, just moving forward. For example, if the bike wants to get a little, if the front end gets a little light and you lose a little tire grip, the passenger moving forward just a little bit on the driver's back, just moving forward a little bit. It's not a matter of how far you can hang out and how much of a show you can make. You've got to use your head. You got to, and so that's the synchronization and the teamwork that develops. It's extremely important, either left or right, or even going in a straight line, where the passenger puts his weight and scooches. It can make a big difference, especially on Formula One machines. The tires have gotten wider, the suspension has gotten better, everything, the racing edge has gotten thinner and thinner and or finer. And that teamwork and that passenger becomes more and more critical. Whereas the 16-inch wheels, the old-fashioned vintage bikes, if you will, they are more fun. I mean, they'll slide and they'll drift and they're just a hoot to ride. But with the wider tires and the more sophistication with suspension and tire technology, the racing edge gets finer and finer, and therefore it gets trickier.
that's interesting. The one experience I have racing where sidecars were present was at the Pikes Peak Hill Climb, and
Yeah.
I saw those sidecars come out, and the tires looked like they came off a Formula race car. They were so big on the rear, and I was really impressed with the surface area.
Hoosier is actually the American company, is now the supplier of tires for sidecar racing at the Isle of Man, FIM, ACU. Avon stepped away from it, and Hoosier has now taken it over. And they are a specific compound. And there's usually, I think Hoosier has a couple different compounds for each position, front, rear, sidecar, as well as wets. So yeah, I mean it's a science.
So with sidecars coming back to the AFM, is Hoosier going to be able to come out to be a supplier at the event, or are you guys going to have to work on just getting tires changed before and after events?
Well, in terms of
Just being a vendor at the track. So, like for example, we have Dunlop, we have Pirelli.
okay,
They come to the
with
races themselves.
vendors come out, there aren't any here in the States. I mean, we can buy the teams buy their tires and they buy their gear, but I do have a sponsor lined up that wants to sponsor the Sidecar series. I won't mention yet who that is until we get it all glued together. But we do have a sponsor for that. And I think I've been working with you on that.
Yes, yeah, I'm the lead with the sponsors, and so we'll take anything we can get.
We need to have a phone conversation so that we can get that rolling.
Yeah,
But we do have a sponsor who wants to sponsor the AFM Sidecar series.
that's fantastic. Can you kind of give me some history with the AFM and sidecars? I mean, you mentioned you raced 70s and 80s. You know, I was a kid then, but my uncle raced late 70s the AFM.
Right.
So I'm sure a lot of people love to just kind of hear what it was like.
Well, I started, like I said, and when I came back from Germany in 73, but the sidecars were going quite well with AFM at that time. So back in the 60s, there was a group of in Southern California called the Side Hack Association. Doug Bingham, who headed that up, he had a business called Side Striders. Doug Bingham, oh, some of the early guys, Richard Haight, Bob Bacher, who I became my mentor, as well as my sponsor, actually. Um, a lot Reg Pridmore was early on with sidecars in the with AFM. There was a pretty good sized group of people. They were at that time they would race. When they started, they were mostly dirt guys, and it kind of evolved over into road racing. And I think Bob Bacher, I believe, was the first. He's Dutch, and he introduced the first kneeler, I think. Uh, but there was a pretty good group. For example, when in the 70s, particularly, it really took off. It was going well when I came back. Well, there was Ozzy Hour, who was here from Chico, who I ended up driving. I raced for him. Ozzy and Dean Hummer, who was AFM champion for several years and sponsored by Harley Davidson. He had a Harley sidecar outfit, and Bingham, Jerry Jarman. There was just a lot of guys. AFM in the 70s, there was AFM South and AFM North. And we would go south and race at Ontario and Riverside. And there was a lot of sidecar racing at Orange County, but I never raced there. And I don't know if that was AFM or if that was another sanctioning body, to tell you the truth. But I know they raced at Orange County.
I believe the AFM did race at Orange County.
Okay. And Vacaville as well. But when I started in 73, it was with AFM. It was Riverside, Ontario, Sears Point. Sears Point was our home track. We raced Sears Point constantly.
Yeah.
And then we would go, I'm from Chico. I'm still live in Chico. And we would go north to Oregon, north to Washington, and north to Westwood in Canada as well. So we were racing all up and down the West Coast, as were solo riders and sidecar and several other sidecar riders. We raced with, and then we went pro, say Camel Pro, AMA Camel Pro. We became part of their series in 76 was the first, even though at Laguna Seca at the Champion Sparkplug 200 for sidecars were always featured there. And it would be mostly AFM sidecars. Of course, for Laguna, the East Coast guys would come out. And that was as early as 71, I think, was the first time they raced there. at Laguna with that event, with a big event, was an AMA, big event. 72, 70, and the first time I raced there was 73. We finished second, but that was a big one every year. And we would come in as the promoter's options on that one. And that's how, when we went in 76 with AMA, and that was the first Camel Pro. We went pro, and we were actually became scheduled into the AMA race series. We didn't race the whole series with the sidecars, but we did quite a few of the races. We had the same purse as Superbikes, so we were actually a pro class. And those were mostly, for the most part, at least in the Western races, they were, and we traveled quite a bit. So AFM sidecar racers. And we went to, Road America and Pocono and Loudon, and we did the whole AMA, ran that with a lot of the AMA. And that, I don't know if the demise was AFM into the, we raced with AFM up through Willow Springs. I forgot Willow Springs, we were also racing there. Mid 80s. I stopped racing in 81. We had the CalGuard TZ 750 outfit, which we got a lot of good PR with that. We did an East-West sidecar challenge at Long Beach, when Long Beach was still Formula One.
Oh yeah.
And that was on television in 81. 77, actually, I should regress a little. 77, we were on Wide World of Sports, the full sidecar race at Laguna Seca. And the promoters were Trip Cox, and they were Englishmen. So they got sidecars and kind of understood they were good for the gate, and people were interested in them. So they brought over Rolf Steinhausen, who at the time was, he ended up being 2-time world champion. Rolf Steinhausen, a Swiss team, and George Odell, who was the world champion in 1977. And he was the first Englishman to actually bring the sidecar title back to England after many, many years. And they brought them over, and we were on and we had 25 sidecars start Laguna Seca that year.
Wow.
Pretty exciting. And it was on Wide World of Sports, Chris Economaki, the whole deal. Quite a big shot for, in the arm for sidecars. And we finished third. Wendell Andrews, my passenger, and we finished third, first Americans, and the only Americans that were on the same lap with those guys. I mean, that's how far ahead of us they were. It was interesting because, as a side note, I had raced in Germany as an amateur with Rolf Steinhausen, and he went on to be world champion, and I went on to be national champion. And so, I always say I learned from the masters, and I truly did. There's no question. A good deal of my success was because I learned from those guys over there the years I spent racing in Germany. We had a really good run with the AMA, and it petered out in the mid 80s, 83, 84, and about the same time it kind of faltered with the AFM. I'm not sure exactly what the demise was, to be honest with you. But then there was a Sidecar Racing Association East, and an SRA West was formed, and the guys kept it going up to into the 2000s, running as promoter options, as a promoter option, and organizing races where we could. We sometimes would go to Mid-America, into the Mid-United States. Road America was placed. They went several years as a promoter's option, an East versus West kind of a deal. And I quit in 81, and I started to pursue my career in the motorcycle industry in sales and marketing. But because I was traveling, I was able to hit most of those races, and I would do PR and announcing and do some marketing and do what I could for the sport. So I stayed active in the sport. kind of behind on the other side of pit wall, so to speak, much the
Yeah.
same as now. Um, Before I started racing at Bonneville. SRA East and West went pretty good. It kind of evolved into Superside as a kind of a branch of the European Superside because they were having problems in Europe at the same time. And they were no longer FIM. They started their own organization as Superside and doing their own races, racing where they could for a world championship level. For a while, they were with World Superbike, et cetera, et cetera. And now they're tell the FIM. The FIM did finally pick them up. That kind of evolved, and then it kind of faded away here on the West Coast. And like I said, Arma picked it up, and Arma is has done a great job of sidecar racing, and they've got quite a good following with Arma. But it was time to get something going again on the West Coast. It was going to fade away if we didn't do something.
Yeah, no, I know everyone's excited to have it come back. Considering it somewhat faded, has there still been the continuation of technology? I mean, I look at the bike I race now and it's got so much technology that like the traction control, the auto blip and everything that just takes away. I mean, it makes it easier to go faster.
Right.
Has sidecar development continued as well, or are you still kind of racing on the same equipment as maybe 20 years ago?
It's evolved. It evolved in Europe. There's Louis Christian, LCR Racing is the one that was responsible for that. He started the first of the monocoque chassis. Well, there were tube chassis to begin with that were back in the 80s. They were pretty exotic. They were Formula One technology. But what evolved and what state of the art is today, and you'll see several at with AFM, is a monocoque chassis, similar, not it's Formula One technology, frankly. It's a monocoque riveted aluminum tub with suspension, A-arm, suspension, engine, everything hung off of the similar to automotive, hung off of the tub. And the front end is not center hub steering, not quite. Very unique to sidecar steering, the way that it has evolved. Suspension is extremely important. And now you've got caster and camber and then all these things in suspension. Not all rigs are like that, but predominantly you will see a few of those. We have one, two, three of them on the West Coast, but more popular is the Formula 2, which is the more of a conventional sidecar with the engine under the driver. Yes, the chassis have become more sophisticated. The tires are anywhere from 10 or 11 to 13 inches on the Formula One. So yes, but you won't find electronics. It hasn't gotten to that point yet. It hasn't been. I don't think it's been allowed in FIM, and I don't think you'll find anybody interested in
Yeah.
here. It's expensive enough. Well, I mean, a good LCR Formula One chassis, you're looking at 40K. That's a roller, and then you got to go put a motor in it. So, everything what we see here, our state of the art stuff, are several year old hand me downs. Most of the stuff comes from England or from Europe. There are a couple of builders here in the States. I mentioned Bill Becker down in Apple Valley. He's a prolific builder, Formula 2 vintage. His outfit, which we'll see at AFM, is a tube chassis Formula One, which is an evolution they went through to get to monocoque. A lot of the builders stayed with him because they understand tubing. They're more comfortable with that, and they're easier and cheaper to build. And there's a couple builders on the East Coast, but most of the stuff we get are hand me downs that 5, 6, 7 year old TT bikes that are perfectly good and winners.
Interesting. So obviously, as the AFM grows, we want to have sidecar racing get as big as possible. Um, so if there's folks that are interested in getting into sidecar racing, how much of an undertaking is it for someone that's completely green but they want to find a sidecar and learn the mechanical side of it and so on.
With social media, it makes it easier to go out and do some shopping. Surprising the number of outfits that are around, actually. There's, like I said, there are several just I can think of on the West Coast that are not being utilized. But there is a team in Scotland who has been very helpful to a lot of the East Coast teams in helping them find bikes and bring them over. And you'll find, like I say, used TT bikes or club bikes over there, and over here they're state of the art. So if that's a way to get started as far as riding goes, if it gets to the point that we need to with AFM, we'll do a school.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and it takes time. I mean, it takes track time. If you're completely new to it, but this is something you want to try, we're just going to have to work with AFM to get that worked out. It would be a good problem to have. We had a lot of people that want to come into the sport.
Yeah, I'm certain you're going to see a lot of the folks at the track at the fence watching when the sidecars head out of the pits.
We've done in the past, which has worked very, very well, and is as a result, we have acquired teams. Is at lunchtime, we'll do taxi rides. The sidecar teams are more than willing. If somebody wants to try being a passenger, we'll take them out first. Get into your leathers, and we'll take you out for 2 or 3 easy laps just at lunchtime. And the taxi ride has been very beneficial and gotten a lot of people interested in the sport.
Boy, you could do a pretty good fundraiser.
Yes, indeed.
You get a lot of money if you did that. As far as getting track time, are there any local track day providers that you've been able to partner with, or do you as a group just try to rent a track and you guys have it exclusively?
In SoCal, Bill has been very successful working with Brady Walker. He's got track days in Southern California, and we've done some events with him. FTD, we ran with Augie just about 2 weeks ago. We did a session with the 3 sidecars up at Thunder Hill on the west course.
Oh yeah.
And some of the guys came out, and again, we were very well received. And I actually approached Augie about same time as I talked with AFM about, can we get something going with you for 2 or 3 events here, and can we get something going in SoCal maybe with another track day guy for 2 or 3 days? And then the opportunity came with AFM, and that certainly a better opportunity. It's the one frankly, that I was looking for. Augie has been great to work with, and fun track days, and he's been more than receptive to the sidecars.
Yeah, and as far as the AFM goes, what kind of are your goals or expectations? What would you like to see it become?
Well, we've got to start out. We've got to crawl before we can walk. So, I mean, I want to get the guys to the racetrack, put a good show on for the AFM, show the AFM that we're serious about being there, that we want to grow the sport. Formula One and Formula Two, if somebody's got there are some vintage outfits around. And if somebody wants to bring a vintage outfit, I don't have any problem with that. And we can all run at the same time. When we raced with Arma, they put everybody on the track at the same time. I mean, okay, you've got some closing speeds that are tricky. When you get Formula One on the same course as a vintage bike. But the riders understand that we're all in this together. We want to encourage the sport, and they're okay with that scenario. So if somebody wants to bring some other than a big wheel, I don't want to see any big wheels. It's got to be a purpose-built racing sidecar. There is a class called big wheel that it works in Europe because there are so many of them. But I want to keep it to racing sidecars with the AFM. Wants to bring out a vintage bike, all well and good. But when we'll be on the track at the same time, it'll be only sidecars. There was some concern about sidecars being on the track the same time as solo bikes, and that's ancient history. That'll never happen. It's too dangerous. I mean, we did a thing at Sears Point one time. We were on the track I was on the track practicing with my sidecar, along with NASCAR stock cars, and
Yeah.
it ain't work so good.
Yeah, well, if you're looking for some people to take the devil's advocate position, just post it up on the internet and you'll get some people that are going to
Indeed.
chime in with something negative. But I think that's just an awareness thing that we're going to get some information out there on, the sidecars will have their own practice. I'm not sure if it's more conducive to have all of you guys in one area in the paddock. I
We'd
don't,
be happy to do that.
so
That's where we end up anyway.
as we grow, we're going to do whatever we can to help support it. You mentioned Thunderhill West, and that's a pretty tight little fun track. Are there certain courses that are ideal for sidecar racing?
Yeah, well, Thunderhill West is a fun track, but it's not ideal. It is a little short. Speaking from my own experience, Sears Point's my all-time favorite. We will be going there, but I mean, I love that place. Big Willow is a good one. And the long course at Thunderhill is a good one, great one. And sidecars have raced at Button Willow with Arma. We like Button Willow. Those are good courses. It's something where the bikes can get their legs, stretch their legs a little bit. But you want it tight and technical also, and that's the nice thing about, for example, Big Willow or even Button Willow for that matter. I mean, it's got a little of both, and that's what makes it fun. The technical, I personally like the technical courses because I find them more challenging. So yeah, you guys are AFM is at two tracks that the sidecar racers enjoy. Yeah.
We're kind of scoping things out to potentially go back to Laguna Seca in
Oh, so
2026.
and Laguna's Laguna. It's got kind of a it's because of the history at Laguna, the GPs and well, I tell you, I've won some races at Laguna that were pivotal in my career, um, and there's nothing like that's one of my favorites, no question. There's just nothing like going down the corkscrew. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody's
So,
been down the corkscrew on anything will agree with that.
yeah, you mentioned in the early 80s, Laguna and how many sidecars you get there. So did it have the same draw back in the 70s and 80s as it does today?
Yeah, I think sidecars do because they're unique. They're unique. They're very spectator friendly. Most spectators have not seen a lot of sidecars, and they'll draw people to the races.
Well, I meant Laguna Seca specifically,
Oh,
because you
yeah.
mentioned that drew more back in the early 80s, and it seems like it still has that mystique.
There's no question. No question. Laguna is still for sure, for sure.
I think that in 2005, when MotoGP came back, that kind of revitalized the track.
I agree. I agree. Part of my career was is announcing, and I was the voice of the corkscrew for several years. And so I got to announce World Superbike races, MotoGPs, or the GPs, the earlier GPs. I got a chance to work the top of the corkscrew there and do some announcing. So yeah, Laguna's personally a favorite spot of mine, and racers and spectators. And again, I think the charisma of the place and of the event. Yeah. And Moto America has done a pretty decent job of kind of keeping it going, I think.
Yeah, they've always done a great job, and I think the attendance the last few years that Moto America has gotten has been just phenomenal.
Yes, yes. And they're doing the right thing with some of their starter classes, the Royal Enfield class, and some of the things they're doing are pretty cool. And I've approached them about sidecars, but they've got a pretty full dance card. So
They do, yeah. They're trying to pack a lot in. And then you look at like Laguna and they've got the variable of the fog. They never know if it's going to get socked in until 10:30 in the morning, which pushes the whole schedule back.
I enjoyed going to Miller Motorsports Park in Arizona or in Utah as well, in Salt Lake City. And it's, as I understand it, it's available again, I guess. The Utah Sport Bike Racing Association still rides there, but
They do, yeah. I actually did their last race when they did the perimeter course this year, and it's just a blast. Really kind of got a European feel to the course,
right.
and that club just puts on a great show. They're a good group of people. So
But I think you guys have got a good mix. Thunderhill is a great facility. nice facility, nice, and they're great people to work with from my experience. And in Buttonwillow, it's. I mean, a lot of us would like to go back to Sonoma, but as I understand it, it's just gotten too expensive. Which, well, that's life. And we're getting somewhat limited on our courses here in the West. So I hand it to AFM for keeping things going.
Yeah, I mean it's a group of racers wanting to keep things going. And
Absolutely.
just out of curiosity on the track kind of topic, I unfortunately I never got to go down to Riverside, even as a kid, just to watch. But what was that like racing with AFM down there?
It was fun. We had AFM races down there, and we had national AMA nationals there as well. Riverside was a fun course, and they had a couple different configurations, but they had on them was kind of their not exactly, it wasn't the corkscrew, but kind of a signature turn there at the top of the hill as you went around and then you went down. And it was a lot of fun. Challenging course, technical, and good runoff. Riverside was a lot of fun. And Riverside in its day kind of had that mystique,
Yeah.
of the place because they'd run NASCAR there, and they'd run open wheel cars and AMA nationals, and so it was a sought after a racetrack to go to.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was really nice.
Yeah, it's a shame. I think it's a housing development in a strip mall now, unfortunately.
Ontario was fun. I mean, Ontario at the time was different because it was oval with the infield course that was kind of flat and you had to figure it out. But it was Ontario kind of had that, you know, purpose built racetrack. This is the place you want to be kind of feel to it. In fact, we went to New Zealand in 1976. Wendell Andrews and I, my passenger, and we were national champions at the time, AMA, and our partners, Craig Marks and Mick Parkinson, we both had English chassis that we brought in from England, brand new. And we had Ron Grant. He was a factory Suzuki racer, and he had a shop in South San Francisco, building. And Pat Hennon was working for him at the time. And in fact, I wanted a TZ750 in my bike because they were brand new at the time, but they were very expensive. This was in '74 when we were building the bike. So I had seen where the Suzuki's GT750 Suzuki, the Water Buffalo, had been pretty successful in Europe in the sidecar. So I went down and we had Ron build our motors. Actually, Pat ported the first barrel that we had and built our pipes and could build it for it. And at the time, Ron had been taking riders down to New Zealand to run the Marlboro series. So we went down, we took the two sidecar outfits and Randy Mamola, who was about 14 years old at the time, if not younger, and Pat Hennon, and we all went down and did the Marlboro series in New Zealand. And at that time, Mike Halewood was living in New Zealand. He was
Wow.
retired, living in New Zealand. And of course, he came to the races and came to all the award ceremonies and whatnot. And we ended up doing a lot of partying with Mike Halewood because he liked to party with us because we were more fun than the solo guys. So Halewood borrowed some leathers, borrowed a helmet, and threw his leg over Warren Willing's TZ750 and took it out and did a few laps. And he came back in and said, well, that thing's pretty quick. That very next year in '78, he was at the TT on the Ducati.
Oh,
And
wow.
I personally am convinced that ride on that TZ was one of the things that encouraged him to get back into racing. Well, when we went to New Zealand, that was the first time I'd ever seen Graham Crosby race. And he was unbelievable. I mean, he's out there duking it out with all these GP stars, and Crosby's on a cowhorn Yoshimura superbike, beating these guys. It was incredible. And we all said to us, boy, wouldn't this guy be something if he came to Daytona? Well, he did. And I think it was '81, and he won. He was racing for Giacomo Agostini.
Oh,
And
wow.
we had them. I was with Calgard Lubricants, our garage was right next to Yamaha, and we would dispense lubricants and sponsorship stuff. And if Yamaha's garage was full, we'd get the overflow. We had Augustini and Graham Crosby in our garage, and I got to know Graham real well. So the night before the 200, I'd been out on the town. We were staying at the Holiday Inn across the way from the racetrack. And it was closing time just before 2 o'clock, and I walked in to have a nightcap, and here's Crosby sitting there pounding down the beers. So we had a couple of beers, and he went out and won the Daytona 200 the next day.
That's impressive. Wow. So kind of looking back at the old days, what was it like at AFM aside from the sidecars? But just, I mean, we always have different generations and different cultures. Granny got to go to Sears Point with the old track, no chicane before turn one.
Right.
So what was it like at AFM in general back in the late 70s, early 80s?
Well, we had a great turnout. I mean, there was a lot of racers, a lot of racers. I don't know what their count was then. I mean, 250 and 350 two-stroke, those were such popular classes. The super bikes were Harry Klinsman, in that era, Rudy Galindo on the 250, 350 stuff. There were just a lot of racers on a lot of different size motorcycles. It didn't cost an arm and a leg to go racing. I mean, you could go racing pretty reasonably. Don Green, who went on to be so many. I was looking at in one of my albums here, and it was talking about the AMA finishing points and finishing status of 70, it was 79 when we had our last championship. And it comments that so many of the AMA riders were AFM riders because, and that's true. I mean, the club was really big. I mean, it was Southern California, and so many national riders came out of Southern California, and they were all AFM riders. So, I mean, the crossover was phenomenal. So there was a lot of people riding, and it was tough, very competitive, because there was so many people racing, and so many of them went in the pro ranks. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty great just having that the last few years when we look at Moto America and we see Cameron Bobier, who's a local, um, Andrew Lee, he's an AFM guy, and he's won the Stock 1000 3 times now. And so, Bobby Fong, there's a lot of guys from the AFM that you can see in Moto America. And so
Exactly.
we're pretty lucky to have that kind of lineage.
And it very, very strong in the 70s and 80s, the guys that were racing with AFM that were going over to AMA. And Sears Point, probably as much as I like Laguna, I gotta admit, in terms of being technical, if you could win a race at Sears Point, I always felt you could win a race anywhere. I mean, it was just such a neat racetrack to race.
Built into the hillside with every kind of turn you could think of, the elevation changes. It's
Exactly.
impressive.
And then, that was, like you say, that was before the chicane. I mean, you come down off the hill through turn 10. In fact, that's where we wadded up the sidecar. It was full tilt coming down through turn 10 and the, left-handed sidecar, and we're getting set up for 11. And the rear axle broke, and it was a single-sided swing arm. In fact, the wheel and assembly ended up in turn 11. We spun it and flipped it. Yeah, I mean, but in spite of that, like I say, Sears Point was so much fun. And I had incredible races there with Wayne Luigi, who was Pete Esseff, arch rivals in the sidecar class. I mean, we really had a lot of fun there. A lot of fun.
What kind of attendance did you get with the AFM back in the early 80s?
I don't know. I mean, the pits were full. I mean, if you get, what, 150 now, 180? You must have been getting 300 then.
Wow.
Easy.
Yeah.
It was big. Well, especially with South and North. I mean, there was enough racing and enough racers that, it didn't dilute the or hurt the clubs to have a north and a south.
So were they separate championships?
Um, there was a north south. There was a north championship and a south championship, and then for the guys that participated in them both, there was an overall.
Gotcha.
If I recall that correctly.
One last big question is where do you want to see sidecars going with the AFM next 5 years, 10 years? Like what's your ideal goal?
Well, I like to see it get established, and become a part of the AFM, so that people are interested in sidecar racing know they have someplace that they can go and race a sidecar that will be there in the future. So that's why it's so important to me that we develop this foundation again, and do it right, do it proper. Um, in terms of sponsorship rules, I want to get with I'm going to give your president a call and go make sure we have the right rules. And everything is in place. I want to get the fee schedule and all of that all lined out so that I can present it to the sidecar guys so they know what to expect when they come to their first race, and get a good solid foundation that we can grow on, and once again make sidecar racing a permanent home with AFM.
That's great. I love it. Yeah, well, I can tell you you've got a lot of support. I know everyone on the board's really excited, so we'll be chatting just to make sure that when the next rule book comes out, we've got the updates, and then when we go to the first race of the year at Button Willow, yeah, you'll have a big fan club ready to see you guys take the track.
Well, I hope so. We're looking forward to seeing everybody. I assure you. And Clive, you and I need to talk in regards to the sponsorship thing, so we'll get that glued together.
Yeah, that'd be great. You know, the sponsors help keep the club going so that we can help keep the registration fees as low as possible. So
Absolutely.
everything helps, and we'll make sure to get all the sponsors as much publicity as we can.
Right. No, that sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm
I hope
sure
I didn't get too windy.
what's that?
I hope I didn't get too windy.
No, no, this is great. Like I said, I was raised by my uncle who raced the AFM in the 70s, and so I grew up going to Sears Point, Laguna Seca as a little kid. So it's a real honor for me to be able to talk to somebody that was racing back then. So I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Absolutely. Looking forward to it.